Most people spend decades planning for how much money they need in retirement, but forget everything else.
Today, we're going to talk about all of the things that you're forgetting and planning for in retirement. Hi, I'm Alec Sunners. I'm joined by my colleague Roger Bear here, and we're going to talk about those things that you're forgetting about. And I think we should start really with just the idea of retirement that people think about in their head.
You mean it's not all vacation, Alec?
Yeah, it's people think about, I'm retired, I'm gonna go on vacation all the time, I'm gonna golf all the time, I'm gonna have so much free time to do whatever I want now, and it's gonna be great.
It is going to be great, isn't it?
The problem with that is it is great, but you lose that structure of your everyday life that you've done for the last 50 years of your life.
It reminds me of the line, it's great until it's not. It's true.
Yeah, it's true. And we see it time and time again that people are so excited to retire, but then once they get to retirement, they aren't feeling fulfilled and they're overwhelmed with all of the choices that they have, and without that structure, it can be difficult.
So it lacks a purpose. You say, okay, wait, I'm gonna retire and go on vacation.
Yeah.
And it sounds fantastic until you say, wait, I'm kind of bored. Not only does boredom arise, but you say, wait, maybe this is not super healthy. You can't travel all the time. You run out of money. But should you go through the rest of your life without tasks? And the answer is, well, no. From a mental point of view, from a mental acuity point of view, you need tasks each and every day. So more than organizing the garage or painting the deck, Alec.
How many times can you paint a deck and organize a garage? You run out of things to do unless you shift your identity. When you talk to someone while you're working, they say, who are you? Typically you say, your profession. If someone asks me who I am, say, oh, I'm Alec. I live in Baltimore and I'm a financial advisor. Once you're retired, you lose that occupation part of your identity, when people usually tie their identity to their career. So now that you no longer have that career, what is your identity? Your role changes, you lose your title, your status. Now you're just retired. That structure of your title, your role, your job, that fades away when you're retired.
So if somebody says, well, who are you? What do you do when you're retired? What do you say?
Yeah.
And that lull, that pregnant pause, really reflects this identity shift or lack of identity.
Yeah, many retirees lose their sense of identity, and you have to shape your way into a new role. What's your new identity? Are you a grandparent? Do you do volunteer work? Are you a mentor? What is your new identity?
Well, and what we're really talking about is that as Alec said in the intro, we spend a lot of time counting the beans. That is, making sure we've invested enough and saved enough to finance our retirement. But what about the qualitative, the emotional side of being retired after years and years of work? Work harder, work longer, and then suddenly one day you wake up and put your feet on the floor and you don't have to go to work. And what's that like? And in fact, the fact is that it is an emotional adjustment. You've got to kind of find your way in this new, could be 20, 30 years of your life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will lose sight of that. Retirement is exciting, but there's sort of a honeymoon period that when you retire, it is great. You are sleeping in, you're going golfing, you're doing all these things that you only got to do during the weekends when you worked. But that honeymoon period ends, and you have to shift how you're emotionally feeling about all of these different things in retirement. You have to shift your mindset. And one of the big things that we tell a lot of people is you need to prioritize social connections. And whether that be with friends or family or whoever that is, being alone in retirement without that social connection can be damaging to not just your emotional well-being, but your physical health as well.
Sure. So you need tasks and you need social connections to keep those wheels turning in retirement. And it may indeed take you some time to figure that out. Now, of course, looking at expenses, let's talk about expenses for a minute because they can be difficult to predict. And a lot of what we do here at the consulate is attempting to predict how much money you're going to spend in retirement. But the fact is, healthcare expenses rise significantly in retirement. As they say, after 60, or is it after 50, it's all maintenance. One way or the other, our bodies begin to wear out, and thus our medical expenses begin to rise. But there are also some unexpected expenses that you could encounter in retirement, Alec.
Yeah, and I think a common theme we see is people will come to us and say, "Oh, I'm not going to spend too much on healthcare. I'm healthy. I didn't see the doctor much. I did my annual checkups, and I don't really have any medications to take. I don't have to worry about healthcare expenses." But as you get older, you definitely do. Like Roger said, it's all about maintenance, and it's all about keeping up with your physical health, your emotional health, and as you get older, things creep up that might not have creeped up when you were younger.
Of course, inflation as well. If we talk about a 20 or 30-year retirement, and even at a 2.5% inflation rate, that can have a significant impact on your expenses. That is, how much it costs you to maintain a home, to pay property taxes, etc., and then how much money you need from your portfolio and from Social Security and other sources of income to pay those expenses.
One of the unexpected surprises that a lot of people see with regards to maintaining a home is when you're younger, you might be able to DIY a lot of the things around your house. But if you're 75 years old, I don't think you're getting up on the roof of your house anymore to fix whatever needs to be fixed. And that's going to cost more when you have to hire someone to come do that.
Yeah, so let's recommend, folks, if you're 75, don't get on the roof. No climbing ladders anymore.
Yeah.
It's a good point. All right, so now you're retired, and a lot of folks say, okay, we're going to move. We're going to move. And downsizing, by the way, has a checkered record. You don't necessarily save a lot downsizing, but that's the kind of the quantitative side of downsizing. What's the qualitative side? I've had folks say, well, we want to move to Texas, or we want to move to West Virginia in retirement, to which I always ask, well, have you lived there? Have you vacationed there? When's the last time you were there? And if they say no to any of those, then I say, hey, you should vacation there, spend a lot of time there before you make a move, especially in retirement, because you may indeed, as some couples found in my experience, that they definitely didn't want to live in West Virginia or didn't want to move to Texas. So what should you, that's what you should do, Alex. What are some things that you should not do?
So you definitely don't want to move too far from family. I've seen it in the past. I worked with some clients that when they retired, they said, we want to move somewhere warmer. We want to live by the beach. And they moved to South Carolina. And guess what? A couple years later, they've moved back. The reason why they moved back, they want to be closer to their family. They had no family in South Carolina. All of their family was up in Maryland. And they said, it's just too far. We can't go to the grandkids' recitals or their dance auditions or all of the little things that you miss out on when you're now 10 hours away. So definitely don't move too far from family if you want to stay close and connected with them. You also don't want to overlook emotional downsizing. So we can talk about the physical. Okay, we move from a bigger house to a smaller house, and there's less to clean, there's less maintenance, upkeep with the house. But if you are used to living in a large house all of your life, and now your kitchen's right outside your bedroom and you only have one bath that you have to share with guests, that can be a jarring change for a lot of people.
Sure. I mean, some spouses would say, good grief, I can't get away from you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Well, and if you move too far from family, initially they might like your help, and then eventually you might need their help. So generally, I would say if you have family, don't move too far, because there is a synergy involved in your helping your children and grandchildren, and eventually getting their help as you age.
yeah. And essentially, you don't want to move just for financial reasons.
Right, right. Definitely don't do that. And again, because generally those expectations of lower expenses are not realized when you downsize.
Yeah. So another thing that sort of surprises a lot of people and is actually probably too low on people's retirement checklist. I think this is one that a lot of people think about, but they're like, oh yeah, we'll get to it. It's not a big deal, but it really is a big deal, and that's reviewing your estate plan. Review your wills, your powers of attorney, your advance directives, trust if you have them. Make sure that all of these things still are how you want your estate planned out. And now that you're retired, you're getting older, you want to take a deep dive and say, okay, is this the proper estate plan for us?
Right, how are our assets? The will, of course, addresses how your assets are going to pass to next generations. And I'm generally inclined to think that your will is probably in good shape at this point. But your financial power of attorney and your healthcare power of attorney take on new importance. They may indeed be used in the later years of your life, and you should examine how close are you to your financial and healthcare powers of attorney, whether they indeed are the folks that you intend to delegate those very important authorities to. And if you need to make a change, they're easily made and probably should be handled earlier in retirement.
And I think a lot of people think about their financial assets and they're like, okay, here's how I want my financial assets to pass after I pass. But you can't forget about your digital assets, and that's becoming more and more prevalent nowadays. Is what happens to your Facebook account when you pass away, or all of your iCloud photos, or any reoccurring subscription that you have. Make sure you plan for these after you pass away. And a lot of these will have a legacy contacts on Facebook or your Apple account. You can assign someone as that legacy contact that if you were to pass away, someone can go in and turn these off.
Right. So even if you do everything right, eventually the wheels don't turn as quickly. I hope that's not a surprise to any of you. We've observed this in our parents and grandparents. That is, you don't think as well. Now, of course, there are people who are genuinely afflicted, Alzheimer's disease or dementia, and that's really not what we're talking about. We're just talking about the natural process of aging. So if you think about the issues we've talked about, the qualitative and quantitative issues that are entailed in retirement, you need to make sure that you handle them as early in retirement as possible, understanding that as you age, ultimately, your processing is not as good.
Yeah.
You don't process as quickly. Problems are not solved as quickly. You might become forgetful, even if you're mentally active as you should be.
Yeah, and usually this catches people off guard, and it's usually the spouse that will notice things first. That, oh, my husband or wife, that I noticed some brain fog and some memory slips and things like that. The spouse notices usually before the person experiencing it. And it is important to stay mentally active, reading, social connections, maybe doing puzzles, something just to keep your mind working.
My wife is not watching this, so I think she's slipping a little bit. I mean, I'm just kidding, Audrey. You're not slipping.
I'm going to send this to her now.
No, okay, thank you. But speaking of marriage, this is an interesting consideration. So most families have two spouses that work. So you get up in the morning, you make your breakfast, and out the door you go. Well, now you're going to be retired. And you're going to be in the house and around each other all of the time. What type of adjustment would that be? No matter how well you like each other, how much you like each other, I should say. Now you're going to spend all your time around each other. You'll probably drive each other crazy. And if you downsize and you can't get some private space, some personal time, it can be a mess.
Yeah, and I was shocked to see this statistic that since the 1990s, divorce rates of people over age 65 have tripled. And I think that goes in line with you're spending more time with them, and you're not used to that for the last 40 years of your life. When you're just in a space with someone for so long, you really want to make sure you're working on your marriage actively so that you can be happy with that marriage going into retirement.
Into retirement. And understand there will be, like many parts of retirement, your marriage will take some work. There'll be some transition into retirement.
Yeah, there definitely will be. So that's all of the big surprises that we see often in retirement that people aren't thinking about, but we could probably talk for hours and hours about all of the things that people don't think about. So if you still have any concerns and you're already a client, you can reach out to either Roger or myself or your primary advisor. If you're interested in becoming a client, we can throw a QR code up here on the screen. You can schedule a intro call with us and we'll discuss if we're a good fit for each other. I appreciate everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.